and welcome to our Sacred Wisdom podcast with my co-host Chris Clifford and me, Rebecca Parks. Welcome to our viewers and a very special welcome back to Kim Kindersley. Hi Kim, it's great to have you back with us.
Thank you for having me back. Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed the last time, and it was like we were just starting to dive into stuff, and then suddenly it was over. It's really good to be.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. And Kim, it's great to have you back. And before we started the recording, we were talking about you're in Sri Lanka right now, and we were having some conversations about the turtles. And we decided we were just going to start recording because it's very interesting. So Kim, want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing there?
Sure. Well, it was very spontaneous, me being here through an invitation from a wonderful healer who's based in London, but Sri Lankan. And they have a place down here near a place called Tangal, which is famous for turtle beaches. And in this sanctuary, he has people coming through doing retreats who are focusing on healing. And so I said, he invited me, and I just said, yeah, I'll come. And I just found myself here every day doing breath work, and it's right on the ocean, in between a lagoon and the ocean. And it turns out that this stretch of beach on which there are no buildings, it's just like as far as the eye can see, it's like mangrove and forest kind of, and then the beach and then the ocean. And I think it was the second night I was here, we were called down just before sunset by one of the rangers. And he said, this is where the turtles are going to hatch any moment now. And it was like, oh, there's a few people around, not many. And he just used his hands, and then suddenly there was this little face popped out from an egg, and it's like, whoa. And he said, sometimes there are 50. Anyway, just hundreds of these little beings appeared, and then scrambling over the edge, hurtled towards the ocean. Not one turned the other way back into the forest. They all knew where to go. And there was a real kind of determination, so sweet, so beautiful. And I was filming a little bit of it, and one of them dropped into the footprint that I left, and I looked at this juxtaposition of the human. And it's so like what we've been talking about, Becky, the power animal, the pristine places, nature, our connection to everything. And one of the things that they shared with me in this moment was, not with any sentimentality, just the fact that only one out of every 1,000 of these hatchlings will make it to maturity, and to that being that some of us who are lucky enough, or maybe even just have seen on an amazing nature program, when you're up close to a turtle, and that grace, and that just the way they're almost suspended in the water. And if you're gentle with them, they won't go away, but they'll turn and they'll look at you with that eye. And there's something that affects your whole being when you're in their presence. And for me, it connects also into the other subject that we talk about, which is obviously oceanic, but universal, which is the whale dreaming. And of course, in Native American terms, the turtle it's Turtle Island. And there is a tremendous significance also in the Zulu mythology of the earth being on the turtle's back, and so on. So something very, very beautiful to bear witness to, that see all the conservation, and then the healing, and then just the richness of existence, of being so blessed to be able to bear witness to it.
Kim, that's beautiful. And can you tell us more about whale dreaming and what it is to you?
Yeah. Okay, so let's if we go back 33 years, I knew absolutely no idea what whale. I never heard of whale dreaming. I might have heard a reference to some Aboriginal culture, or but I hadn't ever really been intrigued by it at that time. And I had an experience in my early 30s, just turned 30, and I'd been through some deep analysis, Jungian analysis, and in my dreams I'd been painting kind of green hills and a bay. I didn't know where it was, and this sort of feeling of a dolphin kept coming up, and it's related to whale. It's what activated the whale dreaming. I ended up swimming with this wild dolphin, and the eye looked at me, and it was this life-changing moment. But it was that activation with the dolphin in the wild that led me directly to whale dreaming. In Zulu, they say that the dolphin is the messenger and the redeemer fish, the one who calls, and that the whale is the record keeper of everything that's ever happened, not just on the earth, but in all the universes, which is, I believe, when you're in the presence of a whale, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, that they have seen it all, 50 million years suspended in the oceans, and watching all the changing of the climates and the moving of the land masses, but just navigating these changes. So whale dreaming was unfamiliar to me until I met I would call him a druid. And he had been walking the Michael and Mary lines and had stopped at Glastonbury. And in front of him, in a lucid vision, standing in front of him was an Aboriginal elder, fully painted up, called Terry Yambulbul. And this story was being related to me around the kitchen table in one of my relatives' houses in Ireland. And the man looked at me, his beautiful brother called Keith, and he said, "You need to go. You're being summoned." And that's when I got to meet the Warramuri people of Yolnu Island, who are kind of whale dreamers of what we would say is the North. And at the same time, I'd been with Peter Shenston, who channeled the legend of the golden dolphin. And through that connection, I ended up going south. And that's really where my whale dreaming journey began, with a people called the Merning, who are known as literally the people of the whale. And they invited me to go on a journey into what they called their whale dreaming lands. And I'd heard from them a few stories, but nothing prepared me for arriving in the sacred place. And as you walk to the cliff's edge and look to the left, there's this huge whale tail carved over millennia from the oceans, clearly visible as a whale literally coming out of the ocean and embedded into the cliffs. And that's the gateway to the whale dreaming. And from that place, we went then to another place called Miranagu. And right there is a place where you can sit literally on the cliff's edge, and they would call the whales. And around the fires at night, we would talk and share story. But the biggest thing really was that's in that space, the whale dreaming for me unfolded. And if I had to sum it up, I would say that it's a deep, deep connection to your totem animal, which in this case is the whale, therefore whale dreaming. And it could be lizard dreaming, it could be owl dreaming, it could be turtle dreaming, where you're deeply connected to the being, but also the essence of the being. And in that connection, there are sacred places which I'd also encountered in America, and they called them whale shrines there. Places where you came to camp and maybe do ceremony around the fire, do dances and songs with the whales. And there's this symbiotic exchange of almost the human becoming the whale and the whale becoming the human. And I suppose the deepest part of this journey was being taken into a place they called the Cave of Creation, where they can see in the night sky, in the morning sky, the origin in the universe of where the whale emerged at the beginning of time. And I'll never forget in this dance and song, this line which says, "We were born." We were born along the shores of the great South Seas. We were born to dream the whales. And there's something about this that I get emotional because for me, it speaks of our magical origins. It speaks of who we truly are that we've forgotten. And the presence of the whale and the whale dreaming and the whale song is a constant reminder, even though as a species we went out and murdered them down to practical extinction, yet their song is still one of forgiveness and understanding for how they would describe us, I believe, as the younger brother and sister on the land. And they're urging us to remember our true nature. They're urging us through their songs, through the song lines, to get reconnected, not just with them, but through them all life. Hence the whale dreaming. And in that space, we can travel through the universe, through dimensions, in our light body, really, to know who we really are. But in the embodied sense of what we're doing here on this earth, it's also a reminder to take care of those sacred places, which are everywhere, not just the whale shrines, not just the sacred caves. And for me, from that place emerged the reason why I did the film Whale Dreamers, which was an invitation from these people to share their story, not in the way of revealing great secret ceremonies and so on, but rather the human story of resilience and survival, which in Australia is known as the Great Australian Silence, this the attempt at the entire destruction of a culture, and sending the children off to the four corners and trying to break the connection. And in 1956, the British government detonated 18 nuclear weapons in the deserts above the whale dreaming places. And as a result, that place became uninhabitable, and the government moved that tribe from Yalata onto the whale dreaming sacred sites that belonged to the Mirning because they declared them extinct. And I just realized as I was, you asked me to share this, wow, what could be a greater challenge than coming back from extinction, from the edge of extinction, which must be as a species where we are right now. And somehow or other, the whale dreaming and other dreaming is a portal and a way for us to come back from the edge of this self-destructive, nihilistic behavior. I think that's a good start for what whale dreaming is, I hope.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, that's a very good start. I think we were talking before, and I was explaining that I had one really beautiful, and it must have been about a year ago now, I joined Grandmother Malara with one of her groups, and I guess what we did was a whale dreaming. It was like a guided visualization meditation. And while I have always loved whales and dolphins, and always had I've always had a huge respect for them, and also I did some research on them, this is decades ago, and I loved how I was really sure as well that whales heal the earth. They heal Mother Earth and work with her, and their song is so powerful. We know that sound and vibration, everything's made up of it, and I'm convinced that whales heal Mother Earth. But what they actually do, sometimes whales dives, they are nose down, they position themselves nose down, and then they make sounds, and that I think that's working with Mother Earth. Either it goes into Mother Earth, or it's a way of rebounding the sound off in different directions to call other whales. I don't know what, but they're hugely intelligent, sentient beings. So if you think about it, their brains are way bigger than ours. And they've been around a lot longer, despite humans hunting them, as you say. But I had this beautiful guided visualization meditation, and I've been different animals in visualizations, and sometimes I can even stand when I'm out on a walk and see like a bird above, and I can even transfer some of my consciousness, so I am that bird, so I can look down and see. And I've learned to do that. I'm sure I don't do it that well, but I've done it well enough to see like a bird's eye view, or to pick up a real feeling and a sense of what it's like to be in another animal's body. And so I've never been a whale before, and what really was magical and startling for me is that, so we were told we were all whales, and I just seemed to be in the body of a baby blue whale that was being birthed. So I was inside the mother, then I went through the birth process and came out into the water. And I remember the startling feel of the cold water having been in. I remember the feeling of being in the warm womb, being squished through the birth canal, and then coming out into really cold water, which shocked me. And I remember that feeling of, like this. And then going to take my first breath, and that was all. So it was all very real. It wasn't something I just it wasn't something that I just thought, because I could have just immediately gone into a whale's body and been on the journey, but I was sort of being held back, and she was like carrying on, and I was going through this birth process of being a baby whale. And anyway, so I eventually caught up, and we were traveling. I won't say where or how, because I guess that's part of the whale dreaming that was private to this, and we were on a specific mission. But I was traveling, and then I noticed a companion alongside me, and this companion was an enormous turtle, just huge. It was bigger than me as a baby blue whale, and its eye looked sideways at me, and my eye looked sideways at this turtle, and there was just this communication, and it was like me as a baby blue whale being new to the earth experience, and this turtle was saying, I will teach you everything, don't worry, I will always be here even if you can't see me, and I will always be guiding you. And turtles have been a power animal for me, and it was just fantastic that this huge ancient turtle was swimming alongside me, and keeping me company and guiding me. So I just wanted to share that. And this happened over a year ago, and it's still clear as day. I can recollect it as clear as day.
Whale and turtle dreaming. Beautiful. And that sense of peace and wisdom from turtles who've been through so much and yet have such a gentle nature, and it's there's really something profound in this for everyone. That it's like this, against all the odds, here we are. And I love what you said about the transference. Through consciousness, we are able. It's like, I have this thing with eagles too. It's like they turn up at moments when things are really powerfully integrating in a ceremony, which also brings us, to look up, but also as a kind of like a confirmation. Or a hawk close by looking at you, the owl, which is really just all of the universe and nature speaking through us, and we can be, and we are in them. And I think these stories are, as you said, they're more than stories. It's like for people to, so the story's here, but hang on, no, we're beyond the story. This really is who you are. The density of this, which I think we all struggle with. I think I can't believe there isn't anyone who doesn't, at some degree. When we allow ourselves to sink into the source, and through these sorts of journeys and these experiences, our lives take on a really magical aspect.
If you think about it, as you say, our 3D dense bodies, our brain is the thing that we think with, but I'm sure it's an antenna and transmitter, and I'm sure it picks up messages, energies from around us, from the universe. We might think we're discrete packages in our bodies, but we're not really. We are constantly connected to everything around us. And if we can open up to that a bit more and be more receptive, then we can pick up so much more in terms of messages, in terms of being able to connect with all that is around us. I mean, yes, we need to sometimes close down so that we can just focus on like maybe one thing at a time. But when you are in a setting like in a ceremony, or in a circle, or going on a journey, you open up, and your aura, your spirit body, your soul has the ability to connect with things all around the world. We might just sit here, wherever we are in the world, taking up a tiny bit of space in a room, but actually we do have the ability to connect with a bird flying above, to connect with a fish swimming in the water, to connect with a pack of wild horses running free along a beach or something. We have that ability to connect with them and experience what it is to be them, even if it's just for a moment, and feel their feelings. And when you do that, actually, it is incredibly humbling, because you suddenly realize that we are not the only ones that can think and are sentient and are clever. One of the reasons that we've been able to get where we are in humanity is because, in the world, is because we have hands that we can build things with and make tools. Because we've been able to do that, we've been able to advance and create a lot more. But all these other animals are hugely intelligent too. I'll tell you a funny story, actually, because I think it's on TikTok. There's like a TikTok video of a family in the USA have put this like mood board, whatever it is, on the wall of their living room, and on it are lots of different buttons with different words. So if you press the button, the word speaks. Anyway, this is for the dog, so the dog can go along and press a button and tell them what it wants. And not only does it tell them single words like food or play, or the other day it said grandma, because grandma come to stay for the weekend and then went away, and the dog missed grandma, so the dog kept pressing the button grandma, and it kept saying grandma's not here anymore, do you want us to talk to her on FaceTime? And then the couple were sitting down eating an ice cream on the sofa, and the dog went to the mood board, and it said something like smell, car, food. And they were saying, and it kept saying smell, car, food. And they were thinking, why is it? And they were saying, oh, yes, because when the dog goes in the car, it has a certain treat, which is like a milky treat. And they were eating vanilla ice cream. So the smell of that ice cream smelt like the treat the dog has when it's in the car. So that, you know, if you give the dog tools to actually communicate with you, it will. And we know dogs know at least 50 words, if not more. And they think in the same language that we think in. So our dogs will think in English, and other dogs will think in, they can't speak, obviously. They think they can when they're barking away at you, trying to tell you what they want, but they can't speak, but they can think in your language.
Wow.
So it's food for thought, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And horses, amazing beings. And, and that's one way of, that many people in the horse businesses and things, they feel they've got to really control the horse. But actually, when you just connect with the horse in the heart, then the horse actually takes care of you.
Absolutely. I mean, like horse whispering. Yeah, horse whisperers know this. And also some horses, they're so empathic and they love to heal as well. Some creatures like horses, cats and dogs and whatever, they have the ability to connect and want to heal because they love that person. So they have the heart connection, they have the love connection, and they know something's wrong emotionally with somebody or physically, and they want to heal. And also, we see, because I love animals and I sort of focus on that, and I love watching videos of like dogs adopt cats and rear them, and animals that get together, like a dog and a duck, or a goat and a frog. And it makes you think that animals across the animal kingdom will make connections. They will, they have that heart connection, they have that love connection with other animals.
I think
even chickens and kittens. Sometimes kittens will hide under a chicken's wing, to stay out of bad weather.
I think animals can be a lot more in tune with everything, with all that is, than what we can. And I don't know whether it's that they don't have a language, or if I have no idea what it is, but it seems that that they're so connected. I agree, Becky. I think animals know how to heal. I've seen dogs and cats, when you're not feeling well, just come up and give you all kinds of love. I also think I used to travel a lot for work, and my dog and I at the time were really, really close, and he would go through this little routine. Like the first day he wouldn't come out from under the bed, and then, he'd slowly kind of get back into his routine. But he would know when I was coming home, because he'd go, like the day that I was coming home, he would sit at the front door and he'd just sit there and wait until I came home. It always amazed me. My husband would be like, Pringle's sitting at the front door again. And just it's so beautiful how they're able to understand that when I'm 1,000 miles away. It's beautiful.
Absolutely, it's so true. They definitely have that telepathic connection with you, and I've noticed this with dogs throughout my life anyway. But like even yesterday was a classic example. Simon had to go out for about, I don't know, half an hour or so, and when he was about to come, the dogs didn't know necessarily that it was only a short time that he was going to be out, but about 10 minutes before he came home, they all just went and sat by the door, and sort of barked on and off, but as if to say, come on, Dad's coming home now, get ready. And so when Simon came back, I said, the dog's been sitting by the front door just waiting for you. They knew you were on your way home.
I love that. It's feeling. It's about feeling. It's about, and that's what it is. And when that aspect is shut down and cut off, we're cut off from everything, especially ourselves, especially our true nature. And in that openness, there's that telepathy, and that's very much whale dreaming is deep in that space of being able to convey really, really profound things. When you're in the presence of a whale in the water, they, with a humpback whale, with these flukes, that if one little part of it hit it's over. But they can literally dive and with their fluke miss you by inches. Now, I'm not saying that hasn't ever been an accident, but 99.9% of the time. Same with that dolphin, just so aware. And there was a time in Kealakekua Bay, which is called K Bay, famous dolphin and whale place, where actually Dolphin Dave sent me an image of a humpback whale doing this amazing they were just bowing to one another in the water for half an hour and just communing. And many years ago, I went to visit Joan Ocean there, appropriately named. And I remember the feeling of coming into contact with a pod of 200, 300 spinner dolphins and their children resting. So we're very, very quiet and just floating around with them. And she explained something to me at the beginning, and I experimented with it, which is that when we try and think our way to connection, in other words, sort of, if you like, force it, I remember that the dolphins were completely disinterested in me. There was this kind of needy human wanting to, come on, hey, I'm over here kind of thing, man, hey, I'd love to see you. And then she said, no, just breathe really deeply, a few times, just breathe. Just breathe, focus on the breath. And then just go into the heart, just go into your heart space and just surrender to the love, that heart feeling. And I would do that, and suddenly all of these dolphins turning around and then playing games and bringing me seaweed. And suddenly it's like, oh, it's one of us over there. It's like, person, not a mind person, a heart person. And I feel there's a real key in this with our connection with animals on so many different levels. And it's one of the big things on this planet right here, right now, for all of us to bear witness to.
Absolutely. It'd be so lovely I think you're right, when we're in the heart connection, and you're talking about this with the dolphins is a great example, but I think people would see the same with any animals. If you have like a little toddler who wants to come in and sort of touch a cat, the cat's going to run a mile because it does not want to be touched by a toddler that's coming towards it like this. But if a toddler is calm, then the cat will come up to it, and then there's the heart connection, and the cat is more confident. So it's the same with many different species. And now you mentioned Joan Ocean. Now, she's a CC member. She's been a CC member for a long time, and it'd be really nice actually to have her on. So I must make sure I get in touch with her, because someone mentioned that. She said, do you realize last time you mentioned Joan Ocean, she said, they said, do you realize Joan's a member of CC? Who's it? One of our members has seen her anyway. I think, yeah.
That would be so beautiful. She's amazing at this communication. And she's this incredibly vibrant living person. And Jean-Luc Bozzoli, his art is like, it's I call it for me, the best whale dreaming art in the world. Him and Dolphin Dave, and this sort of, it's like what you said at the beginning. And there's images of whales upside down and then pulsing these sounds into the earth, into the oceans, keeping the grid, balancing stuff out. And people, there are different migratory routes of humpback whales. Well, somebody discovered that if the song in the Southern Oceans changed or whatever they do, they would notice that somebody who was recording a whale in the northern part would add that bit on as well. So somehow or other, they're communicating over vast distances beyond just the sonar has to be. So the telepathic capability of the great whales is at the moment possibly beyond our comprehension. And the blue whale that you described, the birthing out of a blue whale. I mean, these blue whales are extraordinary. There are some here in Sri Lanka, and I've only seen a couple, but to be in their presence is like, okay, now we're the largest brain, floating in the water, 50 million years as far as we know. But from where? From everywhere, from the center of the galaxy. And I sincerely believe taking us on the deepest journeys that we are capable of, and wishing us to remember who we are.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. Now, I'm wondering if because there's other things we wanted to talk about. I wonder if we can change gears a bit. And because Kim, again, ages ago when we all met up, you told us some fun and fascinating stories about your time in Ireland. So I wondered if you could, change gears and start thinking about and talking about your some of your times in Ireland, and maybe a little bit about your family history.
Yeah, okay. Wow, that it is a big change of gear, that the family history. It'd been quite nice to relate it to whale dreaming, and that my ancestor was a fellow from humble beginnings and worked their way up. His father, I believe, was a butler for some rich family, or maybe it was the Archbishop of Dublin, actually. But it was 1756 that the Guinness Beer Company came into being, Arthur Guinness. Now, the family crest that Arthur had, one of my cousins sent it to me, with two dolphins in the shape of a heart. And at the center of it was one heart going into many hearts. Now, I bring that in at the beginning because it was a few years after I went on the journey of the whale and dolphin dreaming that when I returned back to Ireland, a friend of mine said, "Oh, this is interesting. I think you'd want to see this." And I thought, wow, that's an ancestral connection. Now, of course, the family, they had estates, they were making alcohol, but also with lots of vitamins and minerals. And people who worked on the estates got their bottle of Guinness. And through the ages, there were definitely relatives of mine who were very philanthropic. But there is something about the land that for the last 100 years, it's just passed out of the family. But my grandmother, Una Guinness, was given a beautiful place called Lugalau for her wedding to my grandfather. And it belonged to a family called the Latouches. Now, this is in the middle of the Wicklow Mountains, 50,000 acres of national parkland with waterfalls and rivers and rocks. And this was the playground that I was brought up in as a young child in the summers and at Christmases. And what I've seen there, what I've experienced there is so beautiful. When I was 5 years old, I was communing with these beings, these blue beings that were like floating around me as a child. And I would go into this special grove, and there were crystals and shells and this lovely little house, which I used to go and hang out in. Cut to 25 years later, I was sent to England. I was brought up in the English public school system, which completely destroyed me and traumatized me and set me on a path that I feel very, very lucky, frankly, to have survived, because in those families, there's a lot of, how can I put it, kind of raucous behavior, but not a huge amount depth of feeling the emotions, except maybe when they're drunk. And I returned to Ireland when I was 30 after the awakening, at that time with the dolphin. And I asked my grandmother where the shell house was. I needed directions because I couldn't find it. And she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I was there every day." She said, "I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't exist." I kind of like, so I would go and hang out, up against this huge wall of granite, which is one side of the estate in the woods, which were stunning old primordial oak, full of this energy of mysticism and magic. And actually, I took a shaman there, and his name was Foster Perry. He wrote a book called When Lightning Strikes a Hummingbird. He was struck down by lightning in Central Park, changed his career. He sat on this mossy rock, and guess what happened? The blue beings came back, and this wind came and picked up some water from the lake and came in like a tornado, and they were in there and they were communing with us. This is all starting to get very exciting again. And I found this vast quartz crystal in the ground, and I reconnected with it. I could no longer move through into the mountain or move through this other dimension, but I was seeing and feeling the beings again. And it was shortly after that Arvel Looking Horse, who is the 18th or 19th keeper of the White Buffalo Woman's Peace Pipe, he started a thing called World Prayer and Peace Day, a beautiful Lakota Sioux elder. And he did a sweat lodge. And there were some characters in the sweat lodge. There was an actor in the sweat lodge. There was a singer, there was, and all this Irish. And I have to say this, that because it was Ireland, most of people were respectful and sober, but not everybody. Arvel took it all in his stride. But when he sang those songs in the lodge, it was like the top of the sweat lodge just opened up, and all these golden beings came in. And it was like deeply connected to that land. And then some other things that occur to me as I'm moving along here is it was a ceremony ground again. And it happened to be the location where John Borman decided to film his movie Excalibur. And it was in that lake that he put the sword. And of course, it's all about the Grail. And on the mountain next to the house is where they put Camelot. So, this blurring of the mythological and the stories from the past. And I'm bringing up Glastonbury again, and I'm getting goosebumps as I'm feeling my way back into, the Irish tales. And in the meantime, in the house, music is happening, music and poetry, and that level of sharing, but also a deep sadness, a kind of, in a way, a group of beings trapped primarily by alcohol, and somehow, somehow not fully connected with what was going on out there. And I feel like bringing the whale dreaming in, I was alone at the house, and there was about a 20-minute walk along a river down to the lake. And in the groves and circles of oak trees, these very ancient primordial oaks, at a certain time of the year, the mushrooms would come. And I did a ceremony, and I was on my own. And Ireland, Irish weather is not the best. And up in the mountains there, it can get very wet, very cloudy, very cold. And anyway, on this particular night, it was raging. And I took my tea, said my prayers, and I said, right, I'm going to go down to the lake and I'm going to pay my respects. I'm going to bow down to the ancestors, and I'm going to really connect in with these blue Lemurian, as I interpret it, beings, all part of this deep, deep connection. And I went down there, and it was like when I got into the lake, freezing cold, I'm looking up, and it was like the clouds parted, and it was like all of these whale dreamers and amazing tribal beings were singing up, and this vast whale spirit was And that's why I put that at the end of the video. You'll see there's a vast whale spirit above the dancing ancestral spirits, then grounding down into the circle where we chant not just whale, but maybe we're sharing a beautiful ancient song. The Irish could be some lament. And suddenly everything falls into place. Everything feels connected. And then, of course, it's back to that. It was just, I kind of like came to, and I was cold and I was wet and I was hungry. And okay, the final part of this story, which I wasn't going to share, but I will. And I'm stark naked and I'm roaring at the wind and everything. And I stagger back to the house. I'm there on my own, but I have to add that, in an adjacent house, my uncle had a butler. And I will never forget that night when I staggered back to the house. I thought it was a night off for him. Just before I opened the front door to the house, he opened the door, and there I was standing covered in mud and weeds, looking like the crazy man from the woods. And he just said, "Oh, would you like a cup of tea now?" And sat me down and got me a towel and looked after. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. So there were, on a human level, it was very magical and crazy. And that was the ancestral house. And this music also, and I say Irish music, but I would say that all music, if you trace it back, the grandmother line, the beautiful folk songs that come from the earth. And there's nothing better than that in Ireland. And on the West Coast comes a kind of a lament called Port Nabucchi, which I have to play to you one day. I'll play in one of the circles. And it came from fiddlers who were imitating the sounds of the whales as they came through the channel on a place called the Blasket Islands, which is where they filmed the last Star Wars. And also it was a lament because then their husbands and sons and grandsons would go away on the whaling ships. And again, this double-edged sword of this beautiful human story, but they didn't know what they were doing. And yet they felt at the same time deeply connected to the whales. There's so much sadness, and in those songs there's so much being able to be conveyed. But now, Ireland is really struggling with two worlds: the world of the EU and mega companies and development and all of this stuff, and on the other side, homelessness and this crazy aspect of living, and more Irish returning to their language and their roots and the sacred sites, of which, by the way, Becky, there are many, like near the farm, Loch Crew, the incredible standing stones, 2,000 stone circles in Ireland. You can just walk into them in fields and you feel the energy of the place. And but the tale of the family, it has a sad ending. I was started to make a documentary with my uncle, and he was an alcoholic, as I believe was my father, and to some extent my mother. And he really, in the end, it destroyed him. And there were many times when I was on my own with him, when I would hold him in my arms and rock him to sleep because he was so lonely. And yet he had the most beautiful house. He had money. He had certainly intellectually many friends. He started a record company. He was full of accomplishment, but the alcohol completely consumed him. And I feel very sad because he died, I believe, very unhappy. And unfortunately, in that moment, we disagreed in this, before he died, and he gave the estate away to other cousins who immediately sold it to a billionaire. And so it's in the hands of someone else. And it's like it's going to be interesting because I don't know what will happen, but I definitely go back to the waterfalls and the lakes behind the house, and there's still the magic there, and who knows what will happen in the future. But the family was pretty outrageous, and yeah, I feel very blessed to have had that beginning in life, and I suppose a lot of privilege. But it's a very double-edged sword. It doesn't, you have to learn things that there's so much to learn in this life. And I think that a lot of privileged people, they can be charming and, say that they, do this and do that. But until you actually really get down on the earth and experience what it is to have to earn a living or to look after your family without any help and that kind of thing. And it's, I think I've been very blessed that I lost everything really from those days, and also equally beautiful to have had those experiences, which has led me to here today.
Thank you, Kim, for sharing all of the stories. And wow, there is so much in there that we could talk about. I wanted to, I guess listening to those magical stories kind of gives me more insight, because I was blessed to join your sacred breath circle this past week, which was, Kim and I were talking about it a little bit before the podcast. It was just, I told him, like, words really can't describe this circle. And I have done breath work before, and I'm a meditation instructor. But one of the things I told Kim was that going into the circle, and I'd like for Kim to talk a little bit about maybe what created this, but going into the circle was this amazing, beautiful experience where I just very quickly was so connected, and in an hour just went by, and I realized at the end of the hour that I hadn't had a single thought, that I was so connected to the circle and to way beyond. And I'm calling it the circle. It was it was a ceremony that Kim led that was on Zoom. And so, Kim, I know you've made a video that we're going to show our viewers at the end of the podcast. But could you talk a little bit about the beauty of the circle and the combination of the breath work that you did, and all of the beautiful sounds and everything that you brought into it that made it, again, I really can't describe it, but it's such an incredible experience. And thank you for that, by the way.
Thank you. It's so lovely to talk about it. Becky's pops in from time to time, and so first thing is that it arose out of the thing, from 2 years ago, when suddenly people weren't allowed out or were told that they couldn't go outside. And it just, I've been doing some stuff on Zoom and it was always that I had great resistance to it, but I realized, actually, hang on, something can happen here. This is actually quite powerful. And my desire with the breath work, always in association with Anthony, who started the alchemy of breath, which was my training and so on, was to try and combine my love of the circle and ceremony, whale dreaming, if you like, with breath work. And I thought, well, I tried it a few times live using the chants, going right back to the beginning of our conversation, whale dreaming chants. And oh my, I just start to remember that even way back when we hadn't even finished the Whale Dreamers film, the old man said to me, whale business, you're going to take this whale business out there into the world. And there was full permission to share that aspect. And that aspect is the sounds and the chanting, and both him and Bunna. And so there's a thread of that through, if you like, the 35 minutes of the breathing, and the music's there to activate, to support an internal journey for that individual person. But it's contextualized that even though you're doing your own inner journey, for yourself to reconnect with source and for your own healing, whatever is needed. Everything's accepted, everything's welcomed, nothing is judged in a safe space. It's the aspect of the group intention, which I believe is what you do, Becky, with this amazing group around the whole world, is having an intention, with integrity, having an intention. What we describe it as the new earth, but it doesn't need to be called that, because essentially it's already here, the seed of it in our hearts, whether it's remembering or whether it's co-creating. And I realized very early on that I've been gifted with some of these tools, yes, but actually I was doing it for myself to be reconnected. And the penny dropped very early on that this is a co-creation with every human heart in the room. And I'm sitting in the circle with them, no one below me, no one above me, no one in front or behind, all in this together. And that's what I feel talking to you both. I feel like we're just these humans who care, who are sitting on the earth together, sharing story. That's what I learned in the world dreaming. And yeah, there were significant guides and people who were really, really carried the song and the story very strongly, passing it on to the younger ones. A beautiful, beautiful thing. And now we're sharing it humbly in this way. But actually, the beauty that you're describing, Chris, is you. It's you, and it's Becky, and it's me, and it's like we're in this together. And it's like, and I think that's the field that gets created for maybe some new people who aren't quite so familiar with this. And they think, okay, I'm just coming into a bit of breathing. And then they feel it because of the connection, even though we're separate in the sense of not geographically together. It's the quantum field again, and it's that thing that we talk about. It's real, and you feel it, and you feel it in the circle when it's live. And guess what? You've just said we can feel it together on Tuesdays or Mondays or whenever it is, and we can feel it actually, if we choose to, all the time. Because ultimately, the people say, what's the ceremony? And I go, this is the ceremony. Every breath is the ceremony. That's the key. Right here, right now. And what if we just walk with that? And then the heart is there, that field that you're talking about. And that, that's how we want to affect other human beings. We don't want to control them or manipulate. We just want to feel one another. We want to help one another. And some people who are suffering, some deep loneliness or some difficult times, we hold them. And we just hold them in love. That's it. And it's 2 years. We're coming up to the 2-year anniversary. It's crazy. But that's what it is. It's just a beautiful, beautiful gathering of souls. That's what I say it is.
That's so beautiful. And this is what the Sacred Wisdom podcasts are about, is just finding people to speak with who are reconnected with sacred wisdom, with an aspect of it. It doesn't have to be everything, but I think that everybody, if they delve into their hearts, they will find some connection that they have that's unique to them. And this is what I want to reach, is that part of every human being who will listen. Because if we awaken the sacred wisdom within each human being, then that, I think, is one of the most powerful things that we can do to help them reconnect with who they are and remember who and what they are, and help them with their spiritual journey, with awakening, with being able to co-create, with the divine, and so on. And this is my wish for the Sacred Wisdom podcast. And it's always a beautiful feeling. I mean, sometimes, yes, it might be uncomfortable, or sometimes might, create a shift in someone which they're not initially comfortable with, but it is always beautiful. And it's like, waking up on your birthday or something. It's got that wonderful feeling, as long as you're not lonely, and but if you've got something super wonderful that you're so excited that you're looking forward to, hold that total feeling of excitement. And it's like that, this reconnection, this connection with God, source, spirit guides, that I'm thinking intelligence, but it's a heart intelligence, that pure love energy. It's a beautiful feeling, and it's something that when you're in the matrix you get cut out from. It's that's replaced with fear and control, and we need to get out of that. And for every human being finding their sovereignty, finding their connection, and reacquainting themselves with the magic that is all around them and the beauty that's all around them, which is intrinsic within nature.
That's perfect. And that's it. You just said it. You just expressed it. It's like, and then we have these tools and these groups, and it's like, come, whatever, drop in there, come here, and guess what? It's you. When people say, oh my God, today I cried for the first time in 30 years, or wow, I felt so, guess what? That's you. I didn't give it to you. You gave it to you because it's inside of you. And then your sacred wisdom, as you say, in the DNA. And some people might have a deeper connection to this or that, and that's wonderful. But the heart is the universal language of love. And that is the pulse of the universe. And that is it. And it's never not here. And it takes different forms, but it's like, and sometimes heartbreak's a very difficult one. You think, oh, and it's like, well, hang on. What is that underneath that? Where was I able to feel that? From inside of yourself. So, wow, this is the stuff I love, talking to you. I love the way that this is very exciting, Becky. It's very good. I love it.
No,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Becky. That feels like a great wrap in talking about sacred wisdom and the connection of everything, the connection with nature. So we do have a video to share today. And Kim, would you like to say a couple of words about the video before we go to that?
Yeah, it's very short. It's only a couple of minutes. And, maybe later on we can make slightly longer ones. But this is from the whale dreaming. And it is a message that we recorded nearly 25 years ago in Australia from Bunna Lorry, who's the songman of the whale dreamers. He's the lawman of the whale in Australia, or one of them. And particularly beautiful in its simplicity, from his connection with the eye of the whale and the presence of the whale in the oceans, which are also our subconscious, activating us through the breath and song. He's inviting us back to the fire, to the ceremony, and to the circle, and essentially to ourselves. And it comes from a very precious time of memory, but he's really addressing it to every human heart that is open to hear, or maybe just slightly cracked open, so to get some light in. And he's really essentially also saying that the time is now for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Yeah.
Please come back, Kim. It'd be lovely to have
you
back
in
a few weeks.
You invite me back anytime, and let's just keep this going. I think it's wonderful, and I want to hear more of your stories too, because that turtle and whale, that's stunning. So let's activate each other like we do, and I love you. Thank you, and I'm here when you invite me back.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for all those who are watching our podcast. And please enjoy the video.
We are now in a time of prophecy.